Okay, well, thank you, and glad to be here. It's hard to follow up on the talk we just heard, but I'll do my best. You'll see that this is a talk where you might want to get some popcorn out because you'll see a lot of videos because a lot of our work is really studying couples by videotaping them and coding their interactions and then trying to change their interactions through a variety of cognitive behavioral interventions, not necessarily therapeutic, but focusing on relationship education, skill training. So just a little bit of quick overview of what's going on in relationships today. The divorce rate is actually stabilized and has gone down a little bit. The way the sociologists give the data, 3.2 divorces for every 1,000 in the population. That's called the crude divorce rate because it includes children. But at the highest, for example, the divorce rate was something like 5.2 per 1,000. So it's gone down dramatically. The peak was 1980, which is the same time we established our research center at the University of Denver, but we don't take full credit for that drop, just to be clear. At the same time, if you look at what the prediction is for a first-time couple getting married, getting divorced, which is what we typically think about, right now it's about 43 to 45%. Couples who are remarrying, closer to 50-55. Couples remarrying with kids, closer to 65. So having kids, especially stepkids and blended families, higher risk for future divorce. But of course, there's selection factors, because once you get divorced, it's easier to get divorced next time. That's the triumph of hope over experience, one might say. Marriage rates are also falling, and the age of marriage is increasing. It's getting close to 30 for men, about 28 for women nationwide. A lot of couples are living together before marriage. It's kind of asymptoted. About 70% of couples live together before getting married. Now you can participate. Do you think living together before marriage helps a couple in terms of protecting against distress and divorce, or is it a risk factor? What do people think? Risk factor. What do you think?
I was going to say protective.
Okay, good. We have both sides of the coin. It is a risk factor if the couple lives together and they don't have plans for marriage. And talk a little bit about that phenomena, which we call sliding into marriage, because once you live together, it's harder to break up. So you might find out that the person you're living with, as you're accumulating cars and leases and kids maybe, that they're a great person, but they might not be great for you, but harder to break up after that. So one of the reasons we've been studying relationships and what predicts problems and success and how to change the patterns and trajectories is that there are social costs of relationship distress, marital distress, and divorce. And most of us probably know this: increased emotional, behavioral problems for adults, for kids. For adults, decreased work productivity. You can only estimate the cost, but it's hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And then on the other side of the coin, there are benefits of being raised for a child in a stable two-parent family. It doesn't have to be marriage, but also a stable parenting situation, so single parents can do a great job. And kids who are raised in this stable, healthy environment over time have fewer mental health problems, better physical health, better school performance, less teen pregnancy and delinquency, and just in general, they do better in life. So you can also participate. What is this? Tape recorder. It's a special type of tape recorder. It's a video tape recorder. So when we started our research, we recorded couples using this old-fashioned video recorder. They were cheaper when we started our research than they were a couple of years before, so we were able to kind of actually expand the domain and the reach of our research. And as we talk, the Yankees are playing in the playoffs, I think. I don't know how many baseball fans there are here, but Yogi Berra, one of my childhood heroes, I grew up in New York and New Jersey, one said you can see a lot just by watching. And that's what we're going to do together right now. We're going to hopefully see a lot and learn a lot about couples' interactions and what puts people at risk for future problems. Because in our research, we have videotaped, amongst lots of other studies, couples before marriage and follow them over time to see what kind of interactional patterns predict distress and divorce. And we've identified these patterns. They've been replicated. Other researchers have looked at these patterns in other samples and populations and countries, and we're pretty confident that these are some substantial, what we would call danger signs for future problems in a relationship. You know, it's not inevitable if you're engaging in these negative patterns. We all do. So you're going to see some couples now, they're real couples talking about real problems. You may see yourselves in some of these couples, but don't worry, I'll tell you what to do about it if you see it pretty quickly. But the patterns are escalation, invalidation, negative interpretations, withdrawal. Now, one of the overall findings in our lab and other studies is that if you know the Tolstoy book, Anna Karenina, the first sentence is pretty widely known that all happy families are essentially alike. Each unhappy family is different. The research suggests that actually Tolstoy was wrong. I don't know how many Russian literature fans there are here, and I'm not sure Tolstoy himself cares, but it's really what the research shows is that relationship distress only comes in a few forms, okay? But relationship happiness is a many splendored things. There are lots and lots of different pathways to happiness in a relationship, and only a few pathways to distress. And here are some of them. Escalation, responding back and forth negatively. This is the pattern that sometimes leads to domestic violence, aggression, physical violence. And here's a couple, real couple, engaging in a conversation about one of their problem areas, about how to spend time together on Sunday. And here's a short clip it. And some of these interactions are actually relatively humorous. And this couple actually has a great sense of humor. These people we just recruited from the community to volunteer to help us out with our educational programs and intervention and presentations. So another couple for invalidation. You'll see this couple again at the end of my talk. Invalidation is putting down the thoughts, the opinions, belittling another person. You can do it verbally and non-verbally. And here's this one couple, call them the cell phone couple for reasons. Well, you can see a lot of, very clear put-downs when the couple's getting upset. But very interestingly, the wife, they've been married a month, actually does something to help them exit out of this invalidation sequence and escalation sequence, where she says something like, "You're the last one, you're the last." And that's really a sign of commitment, right? So she's actually being humorous, but she's also saying, "You're the last one." He doesn't take it that positively as you saw. So negative interpretations is more cognitive. It's one of the things we often do in relationships when they're not going well, that we make negative attributions, think the worst of the person and their intent rather than something neutral or positive. And here's just one quick example. You'll see each of these partners make a negative interpretation about the other person in about 30, 35 seconds of video. So the negative interpretation, hers was that you don't care about the safety of me and our family and our kids. Not likely true. His negative interpretation right at the end was, you're just creating a conflict because you just want an opportunity to yell at me. That's also not likely true. So negative interpretations are something that we kind of actively help couples identify, and when then unreasonably negative, to use a basic cognitive behavioral intervention to have people be aware of them and then say, well, this isn't actually a good way of thinking about things. Let's think about things in a more realistic, positive way. Give your partner basically the benefit of doubt. If it's a generally good relationship, give your partner the benefit of the doubt. The last danger sign is withdrawal. This video more or less speaks for itself. That's exactly what's happening. Now, we don't exactly know what's going on with him. If we had more time, we could speculate, but clearly he's both avoiding and withdrawing from the conversation. So, in line with my baseball comment about Yogi Berra, this is a baseball field. It's not Yankee Stadium or City Park. This is Coors Field in Colorado. But this is a model, a way of thinking about what a healthy relationship is based on theory and researching, and see if this makes sense to you. So, starting at the pitcher's mound, that it's really important for each person in the relationship to do their part, not try to change their partner or get their partner to do their part. That's a really important principle, because too often we're trying to change our partner. In fact, we find that that's one of the major causes of problems when we're trying to change our partner, and usually our partner is not really wanting your advice and input. So focus on yourself, what you can change, kind of basic cognitive behavioral intervention principles. So at first base, a real core focus, and this is what we'll be really honing in on today, is the importance of when there's a fight, when there's a conflict, when there's a disagreement, and they're inevitable in relationships, how you handle your own negative emotions, regulate your negative emotions, respond to your partner's negative emotions are just key and crucial. When you don't handle them well, you end up in these danger signs. When you do, you're able to do things to counteract the danger signs. So the two basic skills we teach couples, one, taking a time out to stop the negative interaction, and then being able to get back to the conversation but engage a set of skills to talk without fighting about the issue. Okay, and I'll show you an example of that at the end. Second pillar of a great relationship is the positive things, the reason we get married in a long-term relationship in the first place, the fun, the friendship, the teamwork, the support, the romance, the sensuality, the sexuality, all those positive connections that are so vitally important. And at third base, an area that we're learning about every single day, not that we're not learning about the others in terms of our research, but it's commitment and how people handle commitment, which is defined as kind of a long-term perspective on your relationship. Okay? And when couples have that, when couples have a long-term perspective, it leads for everyone in the family, however that family is defined, for feeling safe at home. Feeling safe at home, which is really important. And this is where kids do the best, when they know that there's stability at home, however their parenting situation is, and that the kids are not exposed to the danger signs between their parents, the destructive conflicts, and that they can depend on their parents, their parenting unit, their biological parents, step-parents, whatever the configuration, because we know families are so diverse these days, that they're going to be there in the future in their relationship and for the kids. So we have a whole perspective on what we call safety theory. And the idea is that there's three types of safety that's vital in the family. Physical safety, that no one's going to get hurt, no one's going to get hit when there's disagreement. Emotional safety, you can talk about issues, any issues, and you can do that, and you know that your partner's going to listen to you and accept you, not agree with you, but that's basic core features of what we consider great attachment. And then commitment safety, the idea that you and your partner have a long-term perspective, and then when you're angry, you're not going to do things that threaten the perspective, not threatening the commitment between the two of you. Here's just myself and my grandson. Just hopefully he's feeling safe at home now in Hawaii while I'm out here. One of the basic findings, and I use this visually, that has emerged from our research and others, and has to do with the ascendancy of the negatives in relationship interaction, that one negative outweighs 5, 10, 15 positives. So when there's a negative zinger hurled, it may take 5 or 10 positive acts of kindness to outweigh that. So it's really important. What we tell our couples is that sometimes when you're really wanting to yell or scream or attack or invalidate, really work on doing your part not to do that, because once things are said, you can take them back sometimes, but really important to think about containing those negatives and adding to your relationship bank account through positive interactions. So basically, we know that the response from society, the mental health community, has been to provide couples therapy for relationship problems. Okay? Sadly, most couples either don't go to couples therapy at all, or they go to a couples therapist who's not practicing an evidence-based approach. So a lot of times you talk to lots of couples who are divorced or divorcing, and they won't have had a great experience in couples therapy. So we really are working on trying to train evidence-based couples therapists in our lab and others around the country. But another alternative that you may or may not be familiar with is called relationship education. And relationship education is a class. People can go to class. It doesn't have the cost associated with couples therapy. There's a major initiative in the country with some roots here in New York and the East Coast, providing relationship education classes free of charge for low-income couples and individuals to really spread the same kind of skills and knowledge that you might get in therapy, but in a class. And it turns out it's just as effective or even more effective than therapy for many people. So the program that we've been working on for the last 30 or some odd years is called the Prevention and Relationship Education Program. And it's a preventative educational approach, research-based, but essentially we teach couples the skills and principles associated with a healthy relationship, okay? So we teach people to recognize the danger signs and then to counteract them with using skills like timeout, and then using a technique that you'll see briefly, a speaker-listener technique, where one person talks, the other person listens, an active listening technique. And then also to make sure that couples are investing in the fun and friendship and positive connections, and also to do things that affirm rather than disconfirm the commitment between the two partners. So basic principle that we have found in research, and this is pretty much classic across most of the studies in this field. All couples are going to have conflict. Conflict is inevitable. Disagreements are inevitable. Most people fight about money, number one, then children, household tasks, sex, religion, a lot of variability in that. Money, number one, the problem area that people fight about. But we really want to let couples know that it's not the issues, these issues are not what's causing the problems, okay? It's how the couple is handling the issue or not handling the issue that is the root of the problem. Not that there are other causes of distress and divorce, making bad decisions, cheating, aggression, which sometimes comes out of mismanaged conflict, but that a lot of the variance is accounted for by these negative interaction patterns. So what we do in focusing couples on some of the key principles, we talked about do your part. These are the 3 keys. We give out floor cards that help people communicate using the floor, which I'll talk about in a minute. So do your part. Make decisions about relationship transitions. Don't slide into transitions like living together. And then make it safe at home. Make it safe to connect in the ways we talked about. The PrEP program has been evaluated by many labs, many studies, many years, and the data are, not perfect, but they're reasonably impressive in terms of follow-up to a 5-year period in terms of negative communication changes, quality, aggression in randomized clinical trials where we assign couples to an intervention program, PrEP program, or a derivative, or a no treatment control group, or an alternative control group, and then study them over time. This is a new data point that just emerged from a conference that I was at a few months ago in Germany. This is a study. It wasn't a randomized clinical trial, but they assigned couples to receive, as part of pre-Canaan counseling in Germany, a German version of the PrEP program in a control group. And 25 years later, this is 25 years later, there's been no study like this, that the control group has a divorce rate of about 25%. And I don't even believe this, but they say it's true that the PrEP group has about a 5% divorce rate. So some impressive findings from Germany. We're doing a lot of work with the military, basic research and intervention research, in a study with the U.S. Army where we randomly assigned couples to the PrEP program, military version of that, and a no intervention treatment as usual group that 1 year later, the PrEP group in red had a divorce rate of about 2%, and the control group about 5%. And then some of those findings attenuated over 2 years, but we still had pretty strong findings with the PrEP group having a lower divorce rate based on the intervention program. Our most recent version of the program is an online version of the program that we call ePrep. And that's been tested now in small clinical trials where we not only get the basic results that I told you about, but we're getting, with this program, this online program, pretty dramatic changes in both verbal aggression and physical aggression. So we now have a large-scale study going on where low-income couples can take this program. And there are hundreds of couples in this trial at the University of Miami, and the couples are randomly assigned to a control group, to the online prep program, and then to another online program. And the intervention groups here are at top. You can see pre-post and 6 months later, there are substantially significant findings in relationship satisfaction with the two intervention groups, lower rates of conflict, pre-post 6-month follow-up, and then higher rates in usage of communication skills. So looking at the online version of the program and other programs, I think it's a really important way to think about intervention in terms of reaching people that we typically do not reach, because people can do the program at any time. We can offer it free of charge. People can get credit. In Utah, all couples getting married can get a credit to take the program, and then if they take the program, successfully complete it, they get discounts on wedding-related services, which is interesting. In Singapore, all couples planning marriage in Singapore take a 2-hour, or can take a 2-hour version of the program, and it's not a randomized clinical trial we're doing there, but they are comparing couples who completed the 2-hour version of the program versus couples who do not take the program. So there's selection factors, and they won't let me give you the results, but they're not bad. So in the future, if I have time to show one more video, or I can stop, whatever you folks want me to do, but one of the directions we really are starting to move in and really want to make strong strides in are to teach these skills that we have been primarily teaching to couples, to teach them to individuals at all stages of life, starting in middle school or maybe younger, basic conflict resolution skills. In Denmark, they're using a version of the program. They're training teachers to use the program, I think, throughout all the third grades in Denmark. And we want to teach high school, college, military populations, and we're working with young mothers-to-be, low-income mothers-to-be in a randomized clinical trial, training them in these skills, and seeing how they extend to their personal relationships, romantic relationships, friendship relationships, parenting relationships, and also trying to reach young people to teach them the skills, college students, high school students, to talk about things they need to be talking about but don't talk about. Things like use of birth control in a hookup situation, STDs, for couples that are starting to think about living together, a little bit older couples. Giant issue that no one's really talking about is the use of pornography. It's a big, big issue in relationships these days that very little research on. And then for younger people, how to have the what we call the DTR, the defining the relationship talk, which is really, we find the couples that have that talk early on tend to do better in their relationships. And then helping couples and individuals get through the major life transitions using the skills to talk about things they need to be talking about. And we really encourage people to sit down and have a meeting, use some skills that they learn in the program, and start out by, well, how do you feel about using birth control? And how do you feel about living together or having kids and having a conversation that avoids the danger signs? Do I have 2 more minutes, or should I stop?
I'm sorry, we're going to have to stop, but save the video. We can.
Okay, hopefully we'll have time to show it, but what the video shows, just something to look forward to, is just shows a couple learning the speaker-listener technique. One person speaks, the other person listens. We ban problem solving, and then people just talk, and the other person listens and paraphrases. So something you can try at home, and let me know how it goes. Thank you so much for your attention.